Hi friends, so today I'm doing a video that I've been procrastinating for like 5 months, and it's how much money I'm making on my Airbnb. Now, I always want to be as transparent as possible with you guys, but that doesn't always mean that I love sharing when I lose money. So let's get into it. This is actually everything that I made, all my expenses for my first 6 months running my Texas A&M themed, Texas themed vintage camper Airbnb in College Station, Texas. Subscribe. All right, so if y'all aren't familiar with the Ag Wagon, I found this vintage 1984 Holiday Rambler travel trailer in Searcy, Arkansas, and Jacob and I rented a truck and drove our happy butts up to get it, brought it back down, and then I spent the next 4 months renovating it by hand. I'm having no experience with campers, travel trailers, mobile homes, or really any renovations other than the ones I did myself on the duplex. It was a lot, but I think it honestly turned out beautiful. I love this camper. It's called the Ag Wagon. I am really thrilled with how it turned out, and it turns out I really love hosting. I love creating this experience for people to come, and I love hearing like how cute they find it and how much fun they have there. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily been the most profitable venture for me thus far. So let's go month by month and talk about it. But first, like I said, $4,200 into it to buy it, and then I actually spent about 11 grand renovating it, setting it up as an Airbnb. That's everything. So I'm a little over 15 grand all in for this thing. I have no debt on it, and it is parked and has been parked at RV parks. So I'm paying lot rent, electricity, internet, and stuff like that through the park. It's usually about $500 a month. And that is because I don't have a spot to put it yet. The goal is to buy some land, put it there permanently, and be able to build out like a really cool spot for it that's very unique. But the parks that we've been in so far have been very, very nice and a little bit more high class. People enjoy staying in them. There are amenities there. The one we're in now has a pool. It's pretty cool. So I launched the Airbnb in December of 2021, and that was so I could, one, I was done with it in the middle of December, and second, I wanted to be able to claim it on my taxes as a business for the year. So operating, which means income has to come in. Don't tax check me on that, but that's what my tax guy said. So we opened it up in the middle of December, right after I finished it. I was hoping to get it done by a late November Texas A&M game. Didn't happen, that's okay. But I ended up listing it on about the 15th, and it booked out for Christmas and New Year's. So technically I did have some income from December of 2021. I had 2 guests stay for a total of 8 nights, and I made $493. Now I did have a lot of expenses for that month because I was still finishing and setting it up, but the main expenses for that weren't about renovating it were $465 for lot rent. So technically my very first month I made a $28 profit, but not really at all because I spent thousands that month finishing setting it up. But once we launched it, that's how much I made. But mainly we're going to talk about 2022, my first full 6 months on Airbnb. So in January, I made $493 off of 2 bookings for a total of 5 nights. And they stayed for between $85 and $93 a night. I had smart pricing on, so it varies a little bit, but that's the highest and lowest. Everything else was in between. My expenses, however, were $847. And that is because in January in Texas, we had a freeze, a really bad freeze, and my lock broke. The original custom lock for the camper that was original, we had taken it apart, my handyman and I, and he had like scrubbed it all clean, made sure it was working good, but it broke because it was just too cold. And what ended up happening was the lubricant in it froze, and it forced a little ball bearing to go down to where you couldn't lock the camper. You could get in, but you couldn't lock it and seal it up. My guests at the time were fantastic, very understanding about it. I got a locksmith out there immediately. He took it apart, fixed the ball bearing, put it back up, but it kind of kept freezing. And it wasn't the easiest lock to turn anymore. Jacob and I ended up going out and undoing it and fixing the ball bearing a couple more times using silicone lubricant instead of the original. WD-40 will freeze apparently. But the fees for the locksmith, and also about $400 to order a custom new lock because we didn't want that to continue to be a problem from Canada. There's a person who makes custom fit locks to essentially get one of the more normal locks that you can get, but then a metal plate that'll fit in the hole, and you have to like cut out a portion of the camper to replace this old long Bargberg, something like that lock. That was $410. So that was the majority of the expenses. If it hadn't been for the locksmith and the lock, I would have made money this month, but that's okay. We decided, roll with it. That's going to happen. We'll update the lock, and then it'll never be an issue again, hopefully. That was the curveball for the month, and my net for the month was negative $353. Next, February. So I booked 3 bookings for 3 nights, and once again, we were having snow and ice and terrible weather here. January in the winter is definitely the off season in Texas, and I'm actually glad that I started in the off season, so it gives me a good barometer for the lows. My highs for this are going to be Texas football season, where I can charge $250 a night for game day weekends, and I can definitely make a lot more than I'm booking at during this time. So my income was $440 for 3 bookings, 3 nights. The rates for that were $69 to $103. And the curveball that happened this month was that the water filter, which is on the outside of the camper, it connects, and there's a filter, and then there's a hose down to the ground where you get the water into the camper from. That froze because of the sub-zero temperatures and busted. And which meant as water was coming into the camper, it was actually spilling out through the water filter onto the ground. And I get this call one night from my renters or my guests that are saying, hey, the water's not on. So I run out, we figure out that's it. We remove the water filter. The water's already clean, and there's a filter inside too. This was just an extra step to make the water like super yummy, and reconnect the hose to the camper. They have water again. But what I did was I ordered a 4-pack of those water filters to replace them. I was planning on replacing them regularly anyway, but that was about $80. The main issue this month is that I didn't have enough bookings to offset the base expenses, which is essentially $500 for camping at the park, the lot rent, electricity, and stuff like that. So my negative for the month was $261. Fortunately, this was the only month that I didn't have enough bookings to cover the core expenses. Next up, let's talk about March. So I had 6 bookings for a total of 10 nights. Between $67 and $106 were the rates, and I made $920. Unfortunately, my expenses were $1,354 for this, and that is because after the lock came in, I had to hire someone to install it. I was not comfortable enough to cut out holes in the door and install this new lock, and that cost about $400. I also decided to make curtains for the wagon. I didn't think they were entirely necessary at first, but I had some feedback from guests saying like that they wish there were curtains that they could close, so I made myself custom blackout curtains. I took blackout curtains from Walmart and I sewed them to the correct size, installed them, and everyone really likes them. They're really pretty. I looked into ordering some custom ones that like come down from Lowe's and Home Depot, but the only ones they had that were narrow enough to get into the windows, they only offered in like really weird colors, and they weren't gonna fit the color scheme. And I just wanted like black curtains. So I ended up making them myself for about $150, but between those two things, didn't make a profit, and I was negative $434. Next up, April. I had 7 bookings for 11 nights with a rate range of $79 to $110, and I made a total of $1,037. First time over $1,000. So that was good. Unfortunately, I really thought I was gonna make money this month, y'all. I really thought it. Unfortunately, we have had something that I now lovingly refer to as poopocalypse, where if you let me briefly explain to you how the innards of a camper work. There is a black water tank and a gray water tank underneath that are essentially 2 holding tanks for waste water and materials. So any water that comes into the camper and comes out through the faucet or the shower goes into the gray water tank, and that gets dumped out through everything. Actually gets dumped out through one pipe that goes into the sewer system that's attached to the outside of the camper. The black water tank comes from the potty, and that is everything that goes in a potty that comes out. So I was told by my handyman that helped me renovate it that I should keep the black water and the gray water tank essentially plugs open and just let kind of everything drain directly outside the camper into the ground. And anyone who's been in a camper is now being like, no, Sarah, you didn't. I did, because I didn't know any better. I did Google that, and some people were like, no, you're supposed to keep them closed and open them and drain them every once in a while. And I was like, if he says it's gonna work. One of two things happened. One, the black in the black water piled up within this black water tank and then hardened and petrified while any, let's say, yellow water went through that tank. So it didn't essentially slurry, it just kind of petrified and the rest flowed out. And that hardened up enough that after one booking, and thank God it happened during a cleaning and not during a booking, my cleaner went in and was like, I can't get the toilet to drain because the process here is between every booking, when you clean the toilet, you kind of fill up the tanks, you pour a bunch of water down to kind of force everything through. And this is with the tanks open to the outside. So the petrified poo mountain essentially had filled the tank and gotten kind of up to the toilet level, and things wouldn't go down anymore. So I had to hire a RV company to come in and essentially shove stuff down there and try to like get the waste out of that tank. And that was $860. And that required them to come out twice. Actually, they had to put in a certain type of like special chemical that's supposed to break down the waste so that they could flush it out. They shoved literal sticks, sticks meant for this, but it basically sticks down there trying to like get everything out. They tried like power washers and water and everything. And then they had to go underneath where there was a slight leak on the seal that it kind of came from it all getting messed with. But eventually they were able to get it all cleaned out. And now we close the black water tank during bookings, open it during cleanings, flush everything. And we haven't had any issues since, which is great. But it took that to make a new process. The other thing that might have happened is when we bought the camper, there might have been old waste in it. And after it being used for a couple of months, that like petrified waste might have detached from the bottom, lifted up, and then kind of created a blockage where nothing else could go through. And that might have created the problem. There's no way to know without taking the black water tank out, but I'm very, very grateful that it's fixed now. And I'm also very much looking forward to installing like a permanent toilet whenever we get the ag wagon set up somewhere, so that we don't have to do these crazy cleaning cycles where you have to go outside and inside and outside and inside to keep all of that in good condition. So that was a lot of money. Otherwise I would have made money this month, about $200. But I also had to cancel a booking because of that. I had a booking for like the final day that the people were coming out to fix it. I talked to the woman a little bit. She was kind of a last minute booking. And then this happened and I had to message her and be like, listen, there are toilets on the park, but I don't think this is going to be the best experience for you if the toilet in the camper isn't working. And I'm very glad I did that. She actually tried to say like, no, we'll be fine. And I was like, I really don't think it's a good idea. And I was able to get her a referral to some local friends of mine that have some really gorgeous Airbnbs here at similar prices. And I think she stayed there. So that was good. But I did lose out on that income plus the $840. So yeah, apocalypse. Campers are fun. Really, they are, but didn't expect that. I did have like all of that inspected and nothing was found amiss at the beginning before I opened it, but there's no way to tell without completely taking a camper apart. Okay, let's go on to May. Exciting. I had 6 bookings for a total of 8 nights between $79 and $150, which is great. And that was the top rate I'd gotten so far. I had a lot of discounts at the beginning to try to get the camper out of there, out into like the Airbnb world. So I made a total of $1,080, which is great. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for. You know, a good side hustle might make you about $1,000 a month, ideally. And my expenses for that would be about half if nothing really happens. So my expenses were $845, which nothing really happened there. I had some cleaning fees for this month that had happened the last month. I need to talk with my cleaner about that, but cleaning fees ended up being $363. And that was for some of the cleanings this month and some of the cleanings the previous month, just because of how my cleaner spaces out her invoices. So I made $235 off of May, which is our first profitable month. Yay! Nothing happened. First profitable month. First profitable month. Yay. And then the 6th month of the year, June, I had 3 bookings for a total of 6 nights, and the rates were between $115 and $119. And so my total income from that was $825. And my expenses for that were $671. And there wasn't anything really wrong with this month. I didn't have that many bookings, and $825 after $500 lot rent. And also I moved the camper this month. We timed out at 12th Park, the first place we were staying. It was lovely. We had no issues there, but they have term limits on older campers. So we were only allowed to stay there for 6 months. We moved to another campground, which is lovely and has a pool, but did that. That didn't really cost anything. My friend Nate moved it for me and I bought him lunch, and I had to pay a $200 electric deposit at the new place, but I also got a $200 electric deposit back from the old place. So that pretty much zeroed me out. However, I didn't accept any pre-bookings. So I moved on May 30th, and prior to that, I wasn't accepting any pre-bookings for June, July, or the fall, just because I didn't want to book the camper when I wasn't positive where it was going. I did figure out where I was going to move the camper in late April, early May, but I didn't, in case anything happened on the road with the camper or something broke in the move, I think I was a little too paranoid about this. I didn't accept any bookings. And a lot of times when people are traveling, they're looking weeks or months ahead of time. So on June 1, I didn't have any future bookings. And the 3 bookings for the 6 nights that I got came for last minute travelers. So I didn't quite make enough to make a good profit this month. And I do think that was a mistake, because I didn't have pre-bookings. And I had people message about game day weekends and everything. I was just so scared about booking out when I wasn't sure where the camper was going to be. And I think that was probably a failure on my part, but an abundance of caution. I wouldn't do it again. I'm now booking out through March of next year, and we'll figure out where the camper's going to be if something happens. You can always cancel. I would never want to really do that, but it's an option. So it's probably going to be fine. This is one weird thing about not owning the land that your Airbnb is under. Hopefully that's soon. So let's talk overall about the first 6 months of the camper and my income. So since opening until the end of June 2022, I made $5,287 in income from the ag wagon, which is kind of cool considering I only paid $4,200 for it to start with. Not including, of course, fixing it up or anything, but I've recouped the original cost of the camper, which is very exciting. That, of course, doesn't talk about expenses, and this is where I'm just trying to be open with you guys, because a lot of the Airbnb short-term rental gurus that I see out there, they're bragging on Instagram about how much their Airbnbs are making per month. They never tell you about the expenses. And I'm hoping they're making a lot of money net, but there's no way to tell unless they tell you. So here we go. My expenses for those 6 months were $6,561. So my net for my first 6 months on Airbnb is negative $1,274. So I am at a loss for my first 6 months on the Airbnb. So we'll go into details on that in a second, but I do want to say, a lot of small businesses don't immediately make money. I think being in the YouTube space originally, I came in very spoiled because there aren't really any costs to keeping up a YouTube channel. So my first couple of years, I was all profit. Any money that came in, I didn't have to really spend any money to make that. But let's do a stat real quick. According to Forbes, most businesses don't make any profit in their first year. And in fact, most businesses take 18 to 24 months to reach profitability. And then, of course, about 25% of small businesses fail in their first year. Now, I wouldn't call myself a failure. This Airbnb has cost me $212 on average a month to operate. So I'm essentially paying to operate an Airbnb. However, during that time, I have had 34 bookings and booked 63 nights of those 6 months at a $104 a night average rate. And the range of rates in that scale is $67 to $150. I do have some bookings for $250 a night with the 2-night minimum for this fall football game weekends. Now we get about 5 or 6 of those a year, but that'll be a very nice weekend for profit, and probably pretty good profit months unless something crazy happens. So I am making on average $881 a month off of this Airbnb. It's just costing me more than that right now because of several because of several big expenses that happened. What's fortunate is that most of those big expenses aren't really repeatable. So hopefully this plumbing system isn't going to break again. The new lock isn't going to break again. There's a chance something else major in the camper could break, like the AC, but most of them aren't going to be as expensive as these things that did happen first off. I believe the first few months of an Airbnb are going to be a little bit of growing pains, especially if it's something as unique as a camper, especially if it's something as old as a 1984 camper. It's going to have its quirks. What's been great is that most of my guests have been amazing, almost all of them. And it's been really fun to generate this, the word of mouth for this business and generate these reviews. So while I have been technically while I have been losing money on this Airbnb every month, I have been growing the business, the reputation of the business, and the awareness of this business. So of the 34 bookings that I had, 26 chose to leave a review, and I currently have a 4.96 star rating, and I am a super host on Airbnb. We have all 5-star reviews except for one. Someone left a 4-star review, and they left a very nice review. I just think some people don't realize that on Airbnb, anything less than 5 stars is essentially like a negative review. So she left a very positive review and just left it 4 stars, and that's fine. It's fine. It's okay. 4.96, I will take it. Since opening, we've been featured on Apartment Therapy, which is really cool. And I've also had something really nice, which is to be able to have a place where friends or guests of mine could come and stay and visit. So my family hasn't come visit yet, but when they do, they'll be staying in the ag wagon. And that means they won't have to stay in the house with our bad little dogs, and they'll have their own space. Got friends that are planning on coming and visiting me soon, and I was even able to offer it to a coworker for a night just for the cleaning cost, so that he could have a kind of like a special night with his daughter. And that was really fun to be able to offer that. My other main takeaway is that my core expenses for this are really too high, and I think a lot of businesses run into this where your operating costs just sometimes aren't sustainable at whatever level they're at based on how much profit you're making. The plan was not to keep the camper at RV parks for longer than the first 6 months, but I haven't been able to find land for it. Once I'm able to find land, it's going to take some money to establish the permanent place for it, because I'll have to run plumbing and power and everything like that. And I'll probably build out like a deck and some other beautiful things. But once that happens, I'll have, at the very least, I won't be paying outside for the costs associated with where it's parked. I'll have lower electricity costs. I won't really have like a lot rent to contend with. I'll have a mortgage on the property most likely, but it's probably not going to be $500 a month. There is this high operating cost that I'm currently having to pay out that I might not always have to pay out, and hopefully will not always have to pay out. That is not the plan, to stay at an RV park permanently. Overall, I do believe that I'll be able to be profitable and make my money back that I've invested in this within a few years from now, likely less than 5. I'll be able to recoup all of those expenses and all of the expenses that I've paid in, and be able to make money on this every month as an ongoing investment and stream of income. Also, now that we're past the first few operating months, it is becoming profitable, which is great. Even marginally, $200 a month is not really enough to pay someone to put as much time and effort and work into it as I currently do. But this is a labor of love, and I am confident that I will be making much more on it one day. I would love to know what you think about my current venture. I have had some kind of cheeky comments being like, it's a money pit, shouldn't listen to you anyway. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I will continue being over here in my little corner of the internet, being as transparent as possible about money, side hustles, and personal finance, because I believe when you're getting into a new stream of income or a new investment that you're putting your hard-earned money into, you should know all aspects of it if you can. If you have any questions about the ag wagon, or if you'd like to book it if you're coming to College Station, I will have the link to it below, and you can also check out the videos of me renovating it, not knowing what I'm doing. That was fun. and tell me if you would ever take on an adventure like this. All right, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to support people admitting when they're losing money on the internet, and tell me what you think I should do with the ag wagon next. I'm keeping it. We'll make money eventually, and I'll keep you updated. All right, I will see you guys next time. Bye.